Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Casey. Joined with me, as always, is my co-host on this project, on this podcast, and for some people in life, this is the one, the only Sam Lynn. Sam, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great, doing great. We have a very special guest on the show today. We've been very excited to talk with him. Cult classic King in the house, in the basement today. We're excited.
In the basement today, we're joined in that basement by the one, the only Mark Torgl from the Toxic Avenger. That's celebrating 40 years this year. Insane number to think about. Mark, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you. Very happy to be in your guys' basement. It looks thrilling in there and dangerous.
Yeah. It's safe. It's thrilling, dangerous, but also it's a little safe. Nothing too scary. Nothing too scary down in this basement. But Mark, 40 years of Toxic Avenger. That's my first question for you.
Crazy.
Has that number sunk in for you yet?
It's really crazy. I never thought that movie, when we were making it, would have this kind of impact on the horror world. The horror comedy world, really.
Yeah.
It's just taken off, and every year it seems to get bigger and bigger with social media. And I've been doing conventions, and there's always a large group of fans that come to the conventions to be a part of the Toxic Avenger. So, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah.
What do you think this might be a big question to kind of just start this off with, but what do you think the legacy of the movie has been now 40 years later? Obviously, this came out in 1984. Now we're in 2024. What do you think that legacy has become? Because now we're 4 decades removed. There is a legacy to it. What do you personally think that is?
Well, I think, the original fans of the movie were the ones that really made it happen and turned it into a cult film by seeing it over and over and over again. And as they grew up and started having families of their own, they introduced it to their own children, even though it's probably inappropriate for children. But it just continues to have new fans. There have been other factions of the movie. There's Toxic Avenger 2, 3, and 4. There's a Hollywood version now with Peter Dinklage, but it hasn't even come out yet, and I'm not sure why, because it's finished. I know that. It's just created its own little world and continues to go on, and I'm pretty thrilled about that. I mean, the 40-year anniversary. I'm doing a bunch of conventions this year. Just based on the fact that it's 40 years.
Yeah.
And, it's always fun. And it's always fun to meet the fans that are just, so into the movie. And that's really what made it, last for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're doing a lot of conventions this year, and we know you're no stranger to conventions over the years. What do you like about conventions? What about that convention life appeals to you? And what's maybe a favorite memory from a convention that you've had?
Well, I didn't start doing conventions until a little over 5 years ago. Was my first one at the Mad Monster convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was something that Eben Megar called me up, who is the head of the convention. And it was on my home phone, and I don't even usually answer that phone because I just use it as, for garbage numbers. But it had Mad Monster in the caller ID. So I said, let me ask something. Yeah. And he was like, "Is this Mark Torgl?" And I was like, yeah. He was like, "Oh my God." He was like, "I run this monster convention, and you have fans that want to meet you. You've never done one before, have you?" And I was like, "No, I never have." And he was like, "Well, we'd like to bring you out. You'll have a lot of fun. It's like a big party. You'll meet fans, and you can make some money by signing autographs." And that's what hooked me. And by doing that first convention, I also started making my own movie, Toxic Tutu, which is the almost true story of Mark Torgl, Melvin the Mop Boy from the Toxic Avenger. And so my partner from film school and I started doing this movie making this movie, and conventions were basically our backdrop. So I tried to do as many as I could so we could film, and that's what we did. And now that the film is made and out there streaming, I'm hooked on these conventions now. So I just still love doing them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things of just the Troma universe, because it's a very niche thing, but it's also such a big thing. You have so many different people that are part of it. I mean, like, obviously James Gunn is the name everybody talks about because he's making Marvel and DC movies now, and he got to start with Troma. Yourself, you came in as a film student, if I'm not mistaken, to work with Troma. What was that like, going in from being a film student to then being in front of the camera, and now again you're behind the camera making a documentary about that overall experience? What was that, I guess, transition back and forth like?
Yeah, well, I was going to NYU Film School. I did a lot of acting in high school. And, I always loved it, but I always thought where the career could be for me would be behind the camera. And I've had a very successful editing career based on all that. But when I was going to NYU, Troma put up a job notice on our job board that said, come work on a real film, you film students. An almost real film. You don't get paid, but it's a real film and you get a lot of good experience. So I went to the Troma offices, which at the time were in Hell's Kitchen, New York, and met with Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hers. And they interviewed me and said, oh, you go to NYU. What do you want to do on this film? And I was like, oh, I kind of like to be the script supervisor. I had a professor that was a script supervisor. And it sounded very cool because you get to work with the director the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And Lloyd was like, great, you're the script supervisor. What else do you want to do? I was like, I like writing. Great, you can write some additional scenes. What else do you want to do? Basically, they just let anybody work at Troma because they don't pay you, for one thing. And they just try and get as many people involved as possible. So that's what got me going. And it wasn't for the Toxic Avenger. It was for a movie called The First Turn On, which they made the year before the Toxic Avenger. Yeah. And I was a script supervisor, and it was not a monster movie. It was, like a teenage sex comedy. Mm-hmm. And at one point, the actor that was playing one of the major characters, which was the boyfriend of the camp counselor, didn't show up. And that's kind of typical and not unusual because nobody gets paid, so it's just like well, this guy just didn't show up. We were all ready to shoot the first scene with this guy, and there were 4 or 5 scenes with him, and we were waiting around. He didn't show up, and finally Lloyd said, Mark, you do it. So I said, okay. And I went and did it, and they really liked what I did. It was another, socially awkward character, over the top, crazy, stupid. And the next year, when they were casting for Toxic Avenger, they called me up and said, listen, we're casting for this new film. And the lead character that turns into a monster, we've been interviewing a lot of kids for it. And what we kept thinking was, we'd like you to do it because of what you did last year for The First Turn On. So if you want it, you can have it. And I was like, great, I'll do it. I was like, can I be the script supervisor too? And they were like, yeah, sure. So I probably shouldn't have taken that job on again, but I did. And the good thing about it was I got to see the whole film being made. It started like a whole thing for me. Later in my career, they called me back for 2 and 3, but I was living in LA and I didn't really want to, I wasn't crazy about the script to tell you the truth. It was supposed to be 1 movie and they made it into 2. Mm-hmm. And then when they made 4, I went back just to do it for fun. And, and the rest has been like a roller coaster ride. It's like after that first convention, the Mad Monster Party, it really got me out there, and a lot of my fans who are now making their own damn movie are always asking me to do cameos in their movie, like AJ. So yeah, it's been very very interesting and a whole lot of fun. So it was a good thing to get involved with Troma, and I'm still really good friends with Lloyd especially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you kind of talk about coming back for Toxie 4 and playing an evil version of your character from the first one? How did that change, and what did you do to differentiate those characters and have fun with it?
Well, again, I asked for the script, and I thought this one was really clever. I really liked the idea of playing an evil Melvin, and and again, they flew me out and they put me up in a hotel, and I just did it for fun, and it really was great to be back in that world. And now they had a crew. Their whole crew were Toxic Avenger fans, so they were just thrilled when I showed up. And I was like, wow, these people really love me. What the hell?
So you've worked obviously with Lloyd like over the years, and you still are friends with him. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship with Lloyd, and how that's grown over the years?
It's definitely evolved from those early days. With First Turn On and Toxic Avenger, I always thought he was a bit of a control freak and not especially appreciative of his talent and crew. But I realized right away that he was crazy creative, and he had some really weird, crazy ideas, but they were really creative. And he really grew on me, by the end of Toxic Avenger, and then with Toxic Avenger 4, it was just a thrill to see him again and to work with him, and fun. And since then, we've done a lot of conventions together, and we always have a good time. I appreciate his sense of humor, and he appreciates me. So it's really turned into a great friendship.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I want to take it back to that first film, and you mentioned it a little bit about this. You're playing, Melvin the janitor, and your character is very, and everyone in this movie is very, very over the top. Everything's pushed to an 11, if not further than that. What was the direction from Lloyd and Michael on that? What did they say to you? Like, hey, this is how you need to portray, because your facial reactions make Melvin in that first half of the movie. What did they tell you to do?
Yeah, that's the Troma style, over the top. And what they would do is, I kind of knew that just because I worked with them on the First Turn On. So they were always pretty happy with me, and they kind of knew that when the camera was on, I could be as crazy as them. And more so, but they would always, with the other actors, they were always prodding them to go bigger and crazier and over the top. And that's just, it was a mantra, especially from Lloyd. You've got to do it bigger. You've got to do it crazier. You've got to just be ridiculous out there. When we turn the camera on, you got to be crazy and over the top. So it's just, encouragement from them. And they would work with the actors until they did the over the top, crazy acting that they wanted.
There's a story that I just heard. It's because Sam and I just watched The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. He just showed Toxic Avenger with Lloyd there for the 40th anniversary. And there's a story he was telling on there, and I want to hear your perspective on it. It's with the sheep. Were you supposed to make out with that sheep? And how bad? I heard it was just a rancid smelling sheep. Where did they get this sheep? Like,
I don't even know where they got this sheep, because we're in the middle of New York City. And it was a disgusting sheep. Yeah, I was supposed to like hug it and kiss it and just get intimate with it. And when the lights went on and the Melvin sees the sheep, And I was starting to, like, with my eyes closed, oh, Julie, Julie, Julie. And I was, snuggling up to it. And I opened my eyes and I see bugs jumping around on this sheet.
Oh, no.
And it really did stink. And so it was like, actually, it helped because I was supposed to be aghast when I saw it.
Yeah.
And
so the reaction is genuine.
yeah, definitely. It was like, what the hell is going on with this animal? And why does it stink? And why are all these bugs on it, jumping around? And it was, yeah, it was true. It was like a disgusting animal. And I'm
where the hell did they get a
so,
sheep in New York City? Like, that's the big question.
I really don't know. I really don't know.
So that's true then. Joe Bob wasn't lying. You were supposed to make out with that smelly, gross sheep.
Yeah, yeah. As long as I think my direction from Julie was to keep my eyes closed, and then they flipped the lights on, and all the kids in the health club were laughing and ridiculing, and of course that's what caused me to jump out the window into the toxic waste.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
So, they're obviously like behind the scenes pics of you in the kind of half transformed Toxie makeup. Can you talk us through the makeup process and everything with that? Because I mean, the makeup in the Toxic Avenger is incredible. It's iconic, and yeah. How did you do with the makeup and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the makeup people were really they were young and inexperienced, but they were really passionate about horror makeup. Jennifer Aspinall was the lead makeup artist, and it was really cool to work with her. I had to do a whole mold, beforehand of my face for the mask, and it was all good. It was all good. And everyone was really happy with the way the makeup turned out. And one story I tell is they were so good at putting the makeup on, they weren't very good at getting it off.
Oh no!
And like at the scene in the street, from jumping into toxic waste, they were trying, after we wrapped that scene, the makeup department was trying to take the makeup off of me, and that was the first time that I was in that makeup, and it wasn't coming off. The makeup, it was like they didn't have the right chemicals to get it off, and finally somebody called the YMCA down the street and asked if one of their actors could come and use the shower to try and get this makeup off. And, they agreed. I went down to the YMCA. So I'm in the shower, just scrubbing at my face. And it was, just really, really bad. But then the boys swimming team came out of the pool area into the shower and saw this naked man with his skin falling off, scrubbing at his face, and they got out of there really quickly. And I'm sure they were traumatized from this forever. So it was pretty funny.
That's crazy. That is funny. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Because when you watch the movie, from our perspective, it's incredible makeup, and like you said, everyone's working for free on these movies, and it's just incredible work that they did. That there's especially a scene that's I'm curious how they did it when you're in the bathtub and your just skin starts bubbling on your arm. How did they do that effect?
There were bladders on my arm with makeup on them, and there were production assistants laying beneath the tub with tubes that were blowing into the hoses to make my skin bubble like that. And it's all practical effects. None of this is special effects. There was no digital special effects back then, and that's one thing that really sets it apart from other horror films. because it was all real makeup, all real, effects. And yeah, that was crazy seeing. I think there were 2 or 3 production assistants laying beneath the tub, blowing into these hoses,
just blowing into a hose to
yeah,
make a bubble. Yeah.
That's
awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. And yeah, I just love that DIY aspect, and that's what just really oozes in the Toxic Avenger, especially, is just that DIY aspect of the entire film.
Yeah, for sure.
So last couple questions I have for you. One, I want to hopefully we can get a story out of you, because like you said, you recently got into the convention scene 5-6 years ago. What's the maybe even outside of conventions, what's the craziest experience you've had with a Troma fan that's recognized you, either at a convention, on the street, whatever? What's just the craziest experience that you've had meeting someone that's like, hey, you're Melvin, you're the Toxic Avenger? What's been the craziest experience you've had?
Well, every once in a while I get recognized outside of the conventions, but it's kind of rare. It's really until I do the conventions, that's where the fans know me. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, where I can just have a normal existence, in my neighborhood and in the city, and I don't really get recognized. But when I do the conventions, of course, everybody knows me. And it's actually really cool. I've signed some interesting things. I've signed some mops. I've signed a couple of breasts. The fans are all tattooed up. I met one fan that had Melvin, my face tattooed to his leg. That was that's like, awesome. Oh my God. That might have been, the strangest thing, or the most, wow.
Surreal. Yeah. That's gonna be very surreal to have your face on someone's body forever.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I see a lot of Toxie. A lot of people have Toxie tattoos, but of my face, I haven't seen too many of those. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
That's really cool.
All right, last question we're going to wrap things up with here. Again, it's the 40th anniversary, the Toxic Avenger. It's been, obviously, this movie is supposed to be coming out this year. I think we're going to see even more of a revitalization of overall Toxic Avenger. But I want to ask you, Melvin, Mark Torgl, if someone's going to watch the Toxic Avenger, maybe for the millionth time or the first time, what's a movie that you would pair with it as someone who worked in front of the scenes and behind the scenes on this movie, that you're like, yeah, this would be a fun movie to watch right after Toxic Avenger?
God, I think the thing that makes Toxic Avenger so unique is there's really nothing like it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think the reason is it's really a horror comedy. It's something that, can make you laugh. I mean, maybe like some David Lynch movies, which are, so ridiculous sometimes.
Surreal.
Yeah.
Could compare or be a good movie to pair with it. But I mean, watch Toxic Avenger, then watch Toxic Tutu.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, absolutely.
Because, then it's all about the Toxic Avenger, really, and what happened there.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer.
Perfect answer. So, yeah, people, go check that out. This has been an absolute blast, Mark. Thank you again for taking time to talk with us about the Toxic Avenger in your career. And thank you again, and just congratulations on 40 years of this movie. Kind of crazy to think about, but
it is crazy.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much. It's been fun. You guys are good.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.